Hi, I'm really excited to be sitting here giving a book review of a very popular book, not a very popular book of Dostoevsky, um, but one of his early works. This book was written in 1848, almost 200 years ago. And if you've heard the name Dostoevsky, you would associate it with philosophy, deep human emotions, deep reflection, because that's what his writing style is. It is very intense, introspective, and philosophically profound. Dostoevsky delves into the minds of his characters so deeply, bringing out the moral and ethical dilemma that is going on inside them. His characters are neither good nor evil, but somewhat delve in the gray areas. And he brings out the ethical dilemma, the inner conflicts very well through long internal monologues that go on. Um, he has written a lot of novels like The Brothers Karamazov, Crime and Punishment, which is a very popular one and a very big novel from him. But this book, The White Knights, is actually a novella. I learned the meaning of this word today. Novella is uh, a, a novel which is shorter than, it is actually shorter than a novel, but longer than a short story. So this book is about what, 90 pages long, and it has four chapters. But before I delve into the plot, I'll give you a parallel from modern day. White Knights is actually a romance, but not in a good ending sort of way. I'll tell you what it means. So, the modern day parallel that can be drawn is with 500 days of summer, right? So, let me get into the plot right away. So, our protagonist is the narrator himself. This book is written in first person, and he is a very lonely guy in his late 20s, living in a big city called St. Petersburg in Russia. And instead of people, he is attached to the things because that's all he can befriend. He's a very shy guy, he's lonely, he keeps to himself, and it's the summertime, and everyone is going away for the summers to their holiday destinations. But this guy is uh, is staying behind because he has nowhere else to go. And the first page opens with the lines, "It was a wonderful night, such a night as is only possible when we are young, dear reader." And then he goes on to describe his state of mind. "From early morning, I had been oppressed by a strange despondency. It suddenly seemed to me that I was lonely, that everyone was forsaking me and going away from me." Note that nobody actually knows him by personality or by name. These people just happen to see him every day passing by on in the parks, in the lawns. He never talks to anyone, and that's why he ends up so lonely. That's kind of his personality, and you would relate to it a lot. Then he goes on to describe he does have acquaintances in the city. He says, "I know the houses. As I walk along, they seem to run forward in the streets to look out for me from every window. I'll almost say, 'Good morning, how do you do?' I'm quite well, thank you. And I'm here to have a new story in me. How are you? I'm being redecorated tomorrow." Or, "I was almost burned down and had such a fright." Okay, I have a monotone while reading a book, so I'm going to describe the scene for you. He's actually talking to the inanimate houses that he passes every day when he goes for a walk in this city. So these inanimate objects, non-living things, houses, trees are his friends. This is how Dostoevsky describes loneliness, right? But all is about to change in his life when he suddenly meets this woman in the middle of the street who's pondering against the railing of a bridge. And suddenly there is a scene of a man coming in trying to hurt her. So our narrator, our protagonist, tries to save this woman. And that's how their bittersweet love story begins. Over the course of a few weeks, he tries to know this woman. The woman also starts to kind of have feelings for him, but then she also clearly says that we can be friends as long as you don't fall in love with me. How typical of a woman, because she explains that a year ago she met a man um, who promised her marriage. That man was in Moscow and was to return at this very time that she is in this moment of the city. Our narrator is heartbroken, but yet tries to help her out in the best way he can. So, this is where the moral dilemma starts to kick in. He wants her to himself because he is lonely and does not, he has craved the warmth of a woman all his life. And he says this out loud expressly, to which Nastenka is the name of our uh, female protagonist, not for protagonist, but the object of his desire. Nastenka says, I like timidity in a guy. She expresses uh, she is clearly attracted to him in some way, but she's trying to suppress herself because she does not. She's she's torn between choosing a lover who she promised herself a year ago and a lover who is standing right in front of her at this very moment, expressing his love. And the story goes on. The narrator um, does try to help her write a letter to win her lover back. It's a very bittersweet story. You can also think of parallels from Hindi cinema, like that Ranbir Kapoor and Katrina Kaif movie, Ajab Prem Ki Gajab Kahani, where Ranbir is trying to help Katrina go back to her former lover. The sadness in their eyes, you can very well imagine that when you're reading this book. It's a story of unrequited love, of feeling uh, left behind, but yet it has a very sweet ending. Um, Nastenka finally reunites with her former lover, but one fine morning she writes a letter to our unnamed narrator. He wakes up in the same old apartment that he lives in. Um, he very hopefully opens that letter and reads and learns that Nastenka is also very uh, agonized by what happened because she feels guilty of having left him behind, of having deceived him with her feelings. She's very, very remorseful, but asks him to be a friend for life. And this reminds you of all the times you've broken up with someone and still think, can we be friends? This is the modern day, the ancient day version of, hey, we broke up, but we can still be friends, right? No, not really. And here, this is the best moment where the narrator comes to terms with reality. Even though he wants to hate her, he doesn't, and he wishes her the best in his mind. This is a very hopeful ending, you know, for all of us, because love doesn't last. Even if you think it does, it has to come to an end someday or the other. So why should we be bitter about it ending? Sh- we should actually be happy that at least it happened. And I want to read out the last line that the author leaves us with. Dostoevsky has written such powerful line that it's gonna stay with you for a long time. He says, "My God, a moment of bliss. Why isn't that enough for a whole lifetime?" Isn't that beautiful? So his writing is uh, very intense. That like I pointed out, it's the stories are not driven by plot. There's no suspenseful storyline that you want to turn the page to. But if you like reading books that are driven by thoughts, by internal feelings, then this book is definitely for you. And you might as well give a try reading other works of this author. Bye.